This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic!
What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is August 11th, 2025. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host, Kevin Tucker. Kevin, what is going on?
Yo, what's up? Here we are. What is this, like the second week of August? Big week ahead for your Orlando Magic, for the NBA. Schedule stuff coming out. Very exciting. We got some international basketball's already gotten underway. Germany and Franz, and Tristan and Franz, I should say. For Germany, have already gotten some friendlies out of the way. So, like, basketball's ramping up. It's very exciting. How are you doing?
I am doing well for the most part. I'm a little annoyed. You might be thinking, like, how could you possibly find something to be annoyed about in, the middle of August about, the NBA? Like, nothing's really going on. But something has been announced. Shams reported, I think this was on Friday, that the NBA Christmas Day for 2025 on ABC and ESPN, per sources, the following matchups, and we're assuming this is, probably in order: Cleveland Cavaliers at New York Knicks, San Antonio Spurs at Oklahoma City Thunder, Houston Rockets at the LA Lakers, Dallas Mavericks at the Golden State Warriors, and the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Denver Nuggets. Now, not a shock that the Orlando Magic are not listed on the Christmas Day schedule, but when we have three teams who have accomplished, just about as much as the Magic, maybe a little bit more if you're talking about the Houston Rockets, but when we talk about the San Antonio Spurs and the Dallas Mavericks being on the Christmas Day schedule, one, I understand the league has already predetermined that Wemby is the next face of the NBA and he's the next chosen one and he's going to run the league for the next 15 years. I understand they're doing all of that, but this dude hasn't even made the playoffs. When he was deemed out for the rest of the season last year, San Antonio was like the 11th seed, like maybe 12th seed if I'm remembering correctly, like at best. And then the Dallas Mavericks, who you might say, oh, well, they have Anthony Davis and they have Kyrie Irving. Sure, now they have Cooper Flagg. Kyrie Irving tore his ACL in March. He's probably most likely not going to be back by Christmas. And given the health history of Anthony Davis the last 7 years, there's like a 50% chance maybe that he's going to be healthy enough to play on that game. And the fact that, of course, it's the number one overall pick, and you cannot convince me that had Cooper Flagg not been drafted to the Dallas Mavericks this year, they would not be playing on Christmas Day. You just cannot convince me that that would be the case, especially given the injury to Kyrie Irving. And the fact that we are now, 3 seasons in some change now at this point, where Adam Silver has done absolutely nothing to promote Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner and this young Orlando Magic team. It is one of the more stupid, dumb things that I have witnessed as a biased Orlando Magic fan in quite a while. The fact that Paolo is legitimately the number one overall pick, by no close measure is he not the very best player of that draft. All-star already was on all NBA type of trajectory last year. We add Desmond Bane. You have Franz Wagner, you have these exciting players, and yet we're getting Victor Wembanyama, who has done absolutely nothing in the league, and of course Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg. I get that it's Dallas, but of course they have a Christmas Day game. I'm just over it.
Yeah, I'm with you. The Wemby thing on paper bothers me, I think, a little bit more than the Mavericks thing. I hear what you're saying. I do think the Cooper Flagg factor, was a part of the decision to have the Mavericks on. But again, I do still think about Anthony Davis, and Dallas is a gigantic market, all that kind of stuff. But the Wemby stuff, that bothers me a little more because, like you said, it's just not a winning team. Again, they're figuring to be a very strong, up and coming young team with a lot of But those are a lot of adjectives you can use to describe the Magic. And the Magic are probably, I mean, they already have proven themselves more than the Spurs team, right? And so that one's a little frustrating. What I took away from this whole announcement, which they also leaked, quote unquote, sources from Shams, who works for ESPN, aka we know it's the real thing, also leaked opening night schedule, which this one is interesting, combined because they came out with the 2 opening night games, which is Houston at OKC and Golden State at the Lakers. Combine that with the 5 games you just mentioned for Christmas, and you'll come to find out that of those 7 matchups, only one of them features a team from the Eastern Conference, or technically it features 2, but the other 6 are all Western Conference head-to-head showdowns, which, if that is any indication, the schedule that comes out this week, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but Tuesday they're going to announce the NBA Cup games. In theory, that's the rumor that we're hearing, and then Thursday will be the NBA schedule. That's, if this is any indication, the NBA is leaning hard into the Western Conference this year. I guess because of injuries, right? Like, I guess because of the Celtics thing and the Pacers thing, and no one knows what the Sixers are going to be with Embiid and Paul George and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the list goes on. The Bucks, obviously, no Dame, not Dame anymore, obviously, because he's gone. But I guess this is just what we're in for this year. But again, on the whole, not picking the Magic is one thing, but to just zero in on 2 Eastern Conference teams, I don't know. It's a little interesting. I hope it's not a sign of things to come. But the only other thing I'll say, what they did get right, though, is the first game of the season, ring ceremony for the Thunder. As annoying as they are, it's Kevin Durant going to OKC to watch OKC lift their first banner. I mean, that you got to give the NBA some credit. They love themselves some drama. So I'll give them that, I guess. But yeah, all in all, it's just pretty annoying and definitely interesting if it's a sign of things to come.
Speaking of annoying, Kevin Durant's reaction to that whole thing is one of the more annoying things that I've seen on social media in some time. And basically, there was a fan, which, KD likes to poke fun at fans and go back and forth at them on Twitter and stuff like that. But in this instance, I don't think it needed to be done at Oklahoma City's expense. Where I'm paraphrasing, but essentially a fan asked, hey, how does it feel to be going back to, OKC and, seeing them lift a banner that you weren't able to do there? And he goes, well, it's been 10 years. I mean, it's about time.
Yeah.
First of all, man, obviously the nature in which he left, you're up 3-1 in that series in 2016. You lose, and then you go and you join that team. And for 2 years, obviously it's the most stacked and most talented team we've ever seen. You won 2 titles, and then you realize that, hey, it doesn't matter that I came to this team and won. I'm still not the guy getting the credit. This is still Steph Curry's team. Even the GM after those championships was saying as much at the parade, right? And he realized, I'm not going to get, the love that I want or, quote unquote deserve here. So now I think at that point, that's when he went to Brooklyn at that point. But you can, how hard would it be to say oh, I don't care. That's awesome. I'm super happy for them. He did the night that they won the title, right? He says congrats, all that kind of stuff. How hard would it have been to just do that?
Yeah, I know.
Super lame.
Yeah, it's very lame. And he kept going in the back and forth with some fans, and fan was like, yeah, you're definitely a narcissist. And his reply was something like, oh yeah, look at me. I care more about myself than your fan base. Yeah, it's exactly right. Or something like that. I don't know. He's it's childish.
Cringe.
I don't know why he is the way he is. He's one of the greatest players of all time, probably the best scorer of all time.
Right.
Just enjoy that, kind of be confident in that. And I don't know, maybe be a little less petty. And I don't know. I mean, look, at the end of the day, if it makes him laugh and he gets entertainment out of it, whatever, it's just still not a good look, I think. But yeah, whatever. Hey, OKC fans, they get to enjoy the ring ceremony right in front of his face, and that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think, my biggest frustration with all the Christmas Day and the opening, season stuff is sure, they are leaning, you could say they're leaning into youth, obviously, Oklahoma City, you're going to have the defending champs play opening day and, Christmas Day or opening night and Christmas Day. But then you still have Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and LeBron James all playing on opening night and all playing on Christmas Day. The criticism of the league the last couple of years has been they cannot let go of this era that is so clearly and obviously, had and past its time in KD, LeBron, Kevin Durant. I don't know. Nobody's arguing that those guys are like top 5 guys in the league, at this point. And obviously, like we see like the up and coming guys, we see the Lukas, we see, obviously Jokic, we see, Anthony Edwards is going to play on Christmas Day. Like they're there, but it's like, okay, well, what about like the next generation of guys? Well, hey, we see Victor Wembanyama, we see Cooper Flagg. There's a couple of guys that are like glaring, like missing from this list, and like Cade Cunningham and Paolo Banchero. Like, what do those guys have to do to prove to the league that, hey, these are actually guys that are like worthy of marketing and trying to, grow this fan base for like the next generation of players? Like it makes me like think of all the conspiracy theories and stuff. Like, why does the Magic were really bad for a long time. It makes sense why the league didn't market them and give them attention. But now it's like the Magic legitimately might be in the finals this year. And like, if they do make the finals or they make the Eastern Conference Finals, for like 80% of the country, it's going to be their first time ever watching these guys play. And that's just insane at this point.
Yeah, you make a good point. Like, Christmas to me feels like a perfect opportunity to basically like show the world some of the young up and coming stars. In fact, like pit them against the veterans, right? You're putting LeBron and Steph and I think Houston doesn't play on. Oh yeah, they do. They play at LA. LeBron and Steph, KD, you're putting them on ABC on Christmas because those are the people those are the guys that people still want to watch for whatever, one reason or another. Put them against the young guy. Put Magic at Rockets on Christmas Day so you can see Paolo versus KD. Like, I think back to, I want to say 2004, 5, 6, something like that. I remember some of the old Christmas Day games. Like, one of the games in my mind was like a Miami Heat Lakers Christmas Day game, which part of it was Shaq playing against the Lakers. Obviously, that's part of it. But the other thing was, it was Dwayne Wade against Kobe Bryant, right? A young Dwayne Wade against a much more veteran Kobe Bryant. And again, that's just another opportunity for exposure for a young up-and-coming NBA talent, on the national stage. And so if you're the NBA, don't you feel like you should be doing that? Because if you just keep throwing out Steph, KD, LeBron, James Harden, whoever else, eventually those guys are going to be gone. And then what are you left with, right? Like, it feels like a missed opportunity, but this has to be the last year that they ride these coattails as hard, I would think, right? The only thing with LA, like, they've got Luka, and he takes the quote unquote torch from LeBron when he inevitably leaves or retires. But outside of that, like, Golden State, really? Like, I know Steph can do it still, right? Like, but it's not as common of an occurrence where he goes crazy. So I don't know. Hopefully this is the last year of it, but it's unfortunate.
It just feels like a fumbling of the league's future. Like, it really does. Obviously, like, they've signed the TV deals and everything like that, but when you keep leaning so hard into these 3 guys, especially, like, when they're gone, like, okay, we're still going to have Luka. We'll have Jokic. We'll have Anthony Edwards. We'll have Giannis. Like, outside of that, like, who would you say are like, not in terms of like talent level superstars, but in terms of like, household names? Like, how many other guys in the league outside of, those 3, vets and like figureheads of NBA history? And then you have, honestly, is Anthony Edwards even at that level yet? I really don't think he is on the same level as like Luka and Jokic and Giannis. Like, he's kind of the guy in the next generation that's closest to that. I think you could put Shea in that conversation as well. But, how many, Adidas commercials does Anthony Edwards have? And Shea, more so last year, with winning the title, obviously, in the MVP conversation. But I think if you just poll like random people on the street, like, do you know who either of these guys are? Like, they might be 50-50, both of them. But at one point, like, do you have to sit and look at like, hey, like, we have the next 15 years of the league to worry about, not just the next 3 or 4. And it's so short-sighted in Adam Silver's the job that he's doing, in my opinion. And I am mostly annoyed because the Magic just get slighted time and time again, and for the Spurs. And I do think, even though they're a big market, Dallas to have this game, maybe not Dallas, but especially the Spurs, and like people are really getting fired up to watch the Cleveland Cavaliers, on national TV. I know they're the 1 seed and everything, but going out the way that they did. But it just feels like, I think maybe my hopes were a little bit too high, that like, oh, this year we're going to get a little bit of attention. And now I thought maybe we'd get, 7, 8 nationally televised games. Now I'm thinking we might get 3 or 4, maybe 5 if we're lucky. Yeah. Especially because, like, to your point, it just seems like Eastern Conference doesn't exist this year to Adam Silver and to these TV partners. Let's just have nothing but 9 and 10 o'clock games on national television. Why don't we just do that?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Again, hopefully it's not a sign of things to come. But all I know is, like, there are more nationally televised windows this year, and they've got to fill them with some 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. games, which means Eastern Conference
nationally
games.
Televised windows.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
are we going to consider like Amazon Prime? I mean, everybody has Prime. I get that, but are we really going to consider that like national TV, or is it going to be like NBA TV adjacent? Like, how is that going to be viewed?
It's tough. I feel like Prime is going to be nationally televised. Like, I'll put it in the conversation. Peacock, though, probably not. Peacock, right. I would put in the NBA TV adjacent category, but I think Prime.
Now, is that going to be considered like an NBA on NBC kind of night, or is Peacock going to be its own separate?
It'll be both. Like, there will be obviously NBA on NBC, but there will be some of them will be exclusive Peacock. Broadcast. Like, I think Monday night is Peacock night or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah. So yeah, that's NBA TV adjacent for me for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people are gonna be like, "Of course this is so stupid that you guys are talking about it," but I just find it annoying the way that the league is. It's not the league that we grew up with. That's for sure. David Stern would not think that this is the vibe, but. All right. Anyways, enough complaining about that. This episode, we are going to talk, a good bit about Jeff Weltman and the job that he and John Hammond, Anthony Parker, their entire staff has done in the now, 8 years into the Jeff Weltman? I think he's going into the 8th year here.
Wow.
But before that, just a quick update for you. So Germany had 2 games over the weekend here against Slovenia, just kind of international friendlies to get them going before they start in the Euro, what do they call it? The Super Cup, I think is what it's called. But Germany on what day was that? Friday the 8th?
Yeah.
What day was that? Friday the 8th. Germany with the 103-89 win. Franz played really well in this game before fouling out. He had 18 points in 17 minutes, was 7 of 10 from the floor, including a pull-up 3 that he hit. Tristan da Silva played 17 minutes. Oscar da Silva played 17 minutes. Tristan played almost 6 minutes. He had 6 points in 6 minutes. And then he fouled out. And Franz fouled out as well. You know me, Kevin. You know I like talking about the officiating. But this game was one of the rougher, not just international games, but like basketball games in general to watch. These are 40-minute games, 10-minute quarters. And in this game, Slovenia took 54 free throws in 4 minutes compared to Germany's 23 free throws, and they made 36 free throws. So at one point, like in the third quarter, it was almost half of Slovenia's points had come at the free throw line, and just made for a poor viewing experience. We'll say it that way. But Germany was without Paolo, without Dennis Schroeder, and without Daniel Theis in that game. And Slovenia and Germany played again on Sunday. Dennis Schroeder did play, still no Paolo, still no Daniel Theis, but they won 80-70. Dennis Schroeder had 18 points in 24 minutes. Franz had 17 points in 25 minutes, was 6 of 13 from the floor. Didn't hit a 3. I'm hearing that there is footage of this game out there. I was at church. I couldn't watch this one live, so I'm trying to go back and watch that. And then Tristan had 7 points in 21 minutes, was 2 of 7 from the floor. it does feel like Tristan is still very much like trying to figure out his role on this team, and it's a new coach. So the lineups seem a little bit different from, Gordy Herbert's lineups the last few summers. So it does feel like this Germany team is still, even though they've played a lot together, we're seeing other guys. I don't know how much of it is due to some guys being out, but we're seeing like David Kramer, Justice Holutz, like having bigger roles as opposed to the last, few summers that they did. So it feels like this Germany team is still trying to, come together and just kind of figure out, the way essentially that they are going to play as they continue through this international cycle. So yes, the DBB Super Cup starts on Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern, Germany versus Turkey. And then it's Serbia versus somebody else that I'm forgetting right now. And basically the winners of those games will play each other in the Super Cup final. And then we've got like another, week and a half or so of international friendlies. On the 21st and the 23rd, Germany will play Spain. And then August 27th, Germany kicks off their group stage in Eurobasket against Montenegro. So they'll play Montenegro, Sweden, Lithuania, Germany, and not Germany, Great Britain and Finland in those matchups. And then I don't know what's going on here. No, this is something totally different. That's the World Cup in November that I'm looking at. But so yeah, another week and a half or so, and then some more friendlies, and then we'll be into Eurobasket.
Yeah, bring it on. It was definitely exciting to watch. I caught some of that first Slovenia game on Friday, and there's already like it's a warm up, it's a friendly for a lot of these guys. It's their first organized basketball in many months, and yet there's already a lot of chippiness out there, which I think is always fun. It adds a little bit of a spice for us neutral fans, at least somewhat neutral. But yeah, lots of guys, going back and forth. But I will say, Luka, the rumors are true. The dude has thinned out. The dude is looking young and spry again. And Nico Harrison, look out, because I think he's coming for some revenge this year, which is kind of weird to say. But regardless, yeah, he's thinned out. He's looking good. But yeah, it's going to be fun Eurobasket session here coming up over the next several weeks.
He's already in mid-season form getting to the free throw line. So
that is true. One thing. That is true. One thing I was going to add, we didn't mention this earlier in the show, Jonathan, but because the NBA schedule is reportedly going to be released this week on Thursday, we are going to do a live show Thursday night. We're thinking around 8:30 Eastern. Mm-hmm. So if you want to tune in live on YouTube, obviously join us as we kind of break down the schedule, walk through it, see the highs, the lows, just our initial reactions. You can join us for that. Again, that'll be Thursday, assuming the schedule does come out on Thursday, like all indications are pointing to. Then Thursday night at 8:30, and that will replace our like normal Thursday episode that you get, when you wake up or whatever. So Thursday night around 8:30 Eastern, we'll go live on YouTube. And if you can't watch it then or listen to it then, obviously we'll upload it to all podcast platforms after that. But yeah, hope you can join us.
Yeah, if the Atlanta Hawks social media team is to be trusted, we're expecting. I mean, that's really how we found out. I mean, I guess quote unquote found out. We're hoping that it's true, but yeah, they tweeted on Thursday like that the schedule's coming out a week from that day.
Right. So
that would then be this Thursday. So obviously every year, like we spend a few hours kind of poring over the schedule before, we jump on here to talk about it. So it'll be fun to do a live show and to go through that and talk about that with you all. And then, almost forgot to mention that Georgia also played, not the Bulldogs, but, the country, Georgia, played in an international friendly today against Lithuania. Haven't been able to find a box score for that. This year has been kind of weird with the Georgia friendlies. There hasn't really been a lot of footage or a lot of box scores coming out of those games, but they lost 54-77. So we don't know how well Goga Bitadze played, but given the final score, I'm going to guess that he either didn't play or didn't really play all that well.
Yeah, I believe he played because I think, well, I need to double check. I thought I saw a picture earlier of, let me, I gotta, fact check myself live on.
A quick little X search here for Goga Bitadze, see if anything.
I saw it
Oh
was
yeah, shooting a three. Yeah,
that's the one I was
Philip
looking for,
Rossman-Reich,
yeah.
Orlando Magic Daily posted it from Georgia Basketball's Instagram. So yeah, he did play.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's being guarded by Jonas Valanciunas, which would check out playing against Lithuania. But yeah, so they got smoked, and who knows? Maybe Goga only played a few minutes, in those warm-ups, because Georgia is going to have to rely on him heavily. So probably trying to pace Goga a little bit so he's not so worn out by the time that Eurobasket starts.
Yeah.
We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from our friends over at Jam Hot Chicken. They are proudly serving the city beautiful. Jam Hot Chicken is bringing Jam's culture and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park. Jam Hot Chicken is a Nashville and LA-inspired hot chicken shack locally owned and operated in Winter Park, Florida. Find them over at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square. Be sure to follow them at Jam Hot Chicken on all social media. Check them out at jamhotchickenfl.com to access the menu, online ordering, music playlists, and all things Jam Hot. They also now have chicken wings, which if you have not had them, they are like the perfect combination of crispy and moist and juicy and tender and delicious. So be sure to give those a try. If not, you can get the Sando or mine and Kevin's personal favorite, the box. You can now order on Uber Eats and get it delivered locally. So if you're in Winter Park and you want to get Jam Hot Chicken delivered to your house or place of business, wherever you are, download the Uber Eats app. And when you stop by, let them know that your friends over at the Six Man Show sent you.
The Six Man Show is also brought to you by Random Hustle, Gabe Gaines, Gear 95 Shred, Next Snappa, and Emma. I said Emma because she has 4 exclamation points with her name. Emma. Shout out Emma, and shout out to all of our patrons. Those are 5 of our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons. Those are the people that went to patreon.com/the Six Man Show and picked the tier that was right for them because they want to financially support the show. They believe in the mission of what we do and the fact that we want to raise up this Orlando Magic fan base to be an amazing fan base, loud, rowdy, active, informed, and they believe in that cause. And so you can join them as well. Again, patreon.com/the Six Man Show. Pick the tier that works best for you. Lots of different benefits and perks that come with each tier. Things like joining our Discord with a bunch of other Magic fans, ad-free episodes for our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons. So if you don't like us talking about, all kinds of random stuff, ads or the ads that are posted on the on podcasts or YouTube ads, ad-free on Patreon as well. And so again, all of that can be found at patreon.com/the Six Man Show. Big shout out to all of our patrons. And now let's get back to the episode.
Okay, Kev, we have been planning to do this episode for like a couple of months here, and it seems like every time we're about to record this episode, either some type of news breaks or something changes, and we pivoted off of this a little bit, but we've been kind of keeping it in our back pocket. But just like, I don't know that we need to go through every single thing that Jeff Weltman is like in painstaking detail, since the start of his tenure in, I think it was May of 2017. When he and John Hammond were initially hired, as general manager and president of basketball operations. But I think it's important, especially for newer Magic fans. We know that, we have people who have just started, paying attention and following to the Magic for the last season, or maybe 2 or 3, even 4 or 5, or listening to the show for the last year, or, maybe 2 or 3, but don't really know like where the Magic were in like the early to mid 2000 teens, and exactly like how the Magic kind of got to where they were now. So you've probably already heard like the Spider-Man origin story, right? Like Peter Parker got bit by a spider, Uncle Ben dies, great power comes great responsibility, all that kind of stuff.
Spoilers. Wow. Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness gracious. As if they haven't made 17 movies of that exact sequence happening.
Yeah.
But basically, like, that the Magic went to the finals in 08-09 with Dwight Howard. Next year, literally blew up the team, brought not the entire team, but like key parts of that team to try to add a little bit more star power next to Dwight Howard. They lose in the Eastern Conference Finals the next year to the Boston Celtics. They go down 3-0, make it 2-3, and then they lose in Game 6. And then like shortly thereafter, like Dwight Howard's body, especially like his back, started to break down. And frustrated with the team and maybe some stuff behind the scenes, Dwight Howard essentially started to play this game of like, will I or won't I leave? Like, I want to be here. I don't want to be here. Well, I only want to be here if you trade for the guys that I want on this team. Well, you did that. Actually, well, I want to leave anyway. Actually, I'm still going to opt in. Oh, the Magic kind of tricked me. I don't exactly know what happened. Okay, now I really want to be traded for real this time. So that trade, and we'll go all the way back to the summer of 2012 here. So part of a 4-team trade, I'm going to read through this. We don't necessarily have to go through all the detail, but for everyone to understand, kind of what happened. So Mo Harkless was traded to Orlando from Philadelphia as part of a 4-team trade. The Lakers traded Andrew Bynum to Philadelphia, Josh McRoberts and Christian Iyenga to Orlando. Philadelphia traded Andre Iguodala to Denver, Nikola Vucevic to Orlando, and Mo Harkless to Orlando. And Denver traded Aaron Aflalo and Al Harrington to Orlando. Orlando traded Jason Richardson. Shout out to Jace Richardson, by the way. Look at that. That came full circle pretty quickly. Orlando traded Jason Richardson to Philadelphia, and Dwight Howard, Chris Duhon, and Earl Clark to Los Angeles. Orlando also received a second-round draft pick from Denver, a first-round pick from either Denver or New York. I believe that ended up being from Denver, if I remember correctly, and one protected future first-round pick from each of the other 3 teams, the Nuggets, the 76ers, and the Lakers. I don't exactly remember what happened with those picks, but basically, this team pretty quickly went from Dwight Howard to Al Harrington, Aaron Aflalo, Nikola Vucevic, Mo Harkless, and Josh McRoberts. Oh, and Christian Iyenga. I believe that's everyone that came back in that deal. Shocker, not a shocker. That team was not very good that year in 2012. That year, the Magic in the lottery, they win the second overall pick. And probably one of the, like, if we go back and take a look at that 2013 draft class, Kev, it was like one of the worst years to have a high pick, right? Like, there wasn't a clear number 1 overall pick in that draft. And Anthony Bennett from, was it Nevada? Where did he? I don't remember exactly where he went to school, but Anthony Bennett was the number 1 overall pick, and like legitimately might be the biggest bust in like of the number 1 overall picks in NBA history.
Yeah, he's up there. Yeah, that was a tough draft, like you said, terrible draft. But when you look back on it, what were you
Las
saying?
Vegas, University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Yeah,
so
UNLV.
I was wrong twice, but also right.
Yeah, you're fine. But yeah, like when you look back on that draft, like obviously there are a couple guys later in the draft that ended up being quite good. But at the top of the draft, of the guys that were there, or not there, I should say, of the guys that were projected to be at the top of the draft, the Magic kind of did their best, right? Like if you look at the guys, like you got to give them some credit for that, I guess. But yeah, that was a miserable draft. Certainly one that will live in infamy for a long time.
And like there are guys that came out of that draft, obviously, like Giannis Antetokounmpo, Rudy Gobert. But in terms of like the prospects at that time, it just wasn't a very strong draft. Like I said, there wasn't like a clear cut number 1. Like even at 2, there were talks of like, oh, well, should the Magic take Victor Oladipo or should they take Shabazz Muhammad? Victor Oladipo goes 2, Shabazz Muhammad goes to Utah at 14. That just shows you like the range of that draft. And to be fair, like draft prospect and mocking, I think has come a long way. Like how often do we say, oh, this guy could go number 2, but ends up like slipping to number 14? That was the year that Nerlens Noel tore his ACL at Kentucky. Obviously, he slides a lot. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in that draft at number 8, CJ McCollum. From this point, future Orlando Magic, Michael Carter-Williams was also in that draft as well. But like the Magic, again, essentially struggle that year. They end up with the number 4 overall pick the following year. Take Aaron Gordon. Also traded for Evan Fournier right before the draft, like earlier in the day that year, traded for Evan Fournier. And they also draft Elfrid Payton, but they kind of got duped, if you remember, Rob Hennigan. And to be fair, I guess probably should have led with this. At this point, for those of you who were not around then, we're going all the way back to 2012, like during the Rob Hennigan era. This is not Jeff Weltman. Just wanted to also lay out kind of like the mess that they inherited in 2017. But yeah, Philadelphia didn't need a point guard. They had drafted Michael Carter-Williams the year before. They somehow convinced Rob Hennigan that they were going to draft Elfrid Payton. So the Magic had to give up like a future first round pick, their 2017 first round pick, to be able to trade for Elfrid Payton. Funny enough, when you look at the way that all of that kind of broke down, didn't go super duper well back then. But then, yeah, like basically like through 2014, 2015, 2016, the Magic are bad and just kind of floundering. Jake Fisher, I think at this point, he's with Bleacher Report, but a few years ago, he wrote a book, Built to Lose, that talked about like the NBA and like the tanking philosophy at that time. And there's a part in the book where he writes about the Orlando Magic and like talking to people that were around the team at that time. The way that they described it was a bunch of rats like climbing up a ladder, like everybody just kind of climbing up on top of themselves, because with the team dynamic of that time, we had Evan Fournier, Elfrid Payton, Mario Hezonja, Victor Oladipo, Tobias Harris, Aaron Gordon, right? And there wasn't like a clear like hierarchy of that team. So you have all of these young guys who are trying to carve out a role for themselves and a career for themselves in the NBA. And there was just not like a really like real strong sense of leadership on that team and in the organization at that time, which unsurprisingly just led to the Magic like being really bad. It got to the point in the summer of 2016. This is also before the CBA that we're in now. This was the CBA prior to that 2016 year where there was the massive cap spike going into free agency. However, the night of the draft, the Magic traded Victor Oladipo, Ersan Ilyasova, and the rights to Domantas Sabonis to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Serge Ibaka, which at the time was like, okay, like maybe Serge Ibaka, because if you remember, Kevin, I know you do, but if you're listening, Serge Ibaka was the guy that the Oklahoma City Thunder kept and decided to move on from James Harden. And then James Harden goes and pops off. So the thought is, well, maybe Serge Ibaka is the next James Harden. He's going to go to another team and, become this great player. And so, yeah, what were your thoughts that night? Because I remember seeing the Woj notification that the Magic were trading for Serge Ibaka. And then the next follow-up tweet to that was that it was for Victor Oladipo and whatever Sabonis was, like the 7th pick or the 10th pick in that draft. Like, what was your reaction to that?
It's hard. First off, much younger version of Kevin back then. I like to think I'm a little more wise now, but at the time, I don't know if it was copium or just my magic blue colored glasses or what, but like I was pretty excited, right? Like, I mean, Serge Ibaka, very important part of a very good team in OKC. And I thought, what he has to offer are things that this team needs. And so bring it on. Obviously at the time we had no idea what Sabonis could become, obviously we hadn't seen him. And obviously the thing that hurt was Victor Oladipo, but people got to remember that was not the Victor Oladipo that we ended up coming to know after he, went to OKC in Indiana. And so, yeah, all in all, I was like, Ibaka's proven. He's capable. He obviously adds defense, which we did not have. And so I was okay with it. I was on board, and obviously that changed very, very quickly.
One thing to mention as well, at the time, the Dwight move is made, all that kind of stuff. Stan Van Gundy is fired. Jacques Vaughn is brought in at the beginning of Rob Hennigan's tenure. After a few seasons, obviously, that doesn't work out. They fire him in the middle of the season. Rob Borrego is like the interim coach for the rest of the year. And then after, who did we have? Did we go right from Jacques Vaughn to Frank Vogel?
Yeah.
I think it was Jacques Vaughn to Rob Borrego, James Borrego into Frank Vogel and then into, or was it Scott Skiles and then Frank Vogel? It was Scott Skiles first, wasn't it? Then we went to Frank Vogel, and then from Frank Vogel to Steve Clifford.
Yeah. Yep.
So to bring up that entire mess, and I'm trying to go through these details to show you, if you weren't around back then, like, you think the Magic are joked on now and like disrespected now. Like, the Magic legitimately were one of the jokes of the league. Like,
and rightfully so, by the way.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Just the organization was not being run all that well during this time. So they go from Jacques Vaughn, then they go and they hire Scott Skiles. And in the middle of that 2015, 2016 season, there are rumors in January, because I think we were 19-13 at the end of the year, and then Elfrid Payton gets hurt that January. I think the Magic go like 2-17 in the month of January, something crazy like that. And the rumors during that time were that Scott Skiles tries to quit in the middle of the season, and then we traded Tobias Harris for Ersan Ilyasova and Brandon Jennings. There's rumors that Scott Skiles and Tobias Harris didn't get along in Milwaukee either. So then he quits at the end of the year. Then they bring Frank Vogel in. There's the trade, Victor Oladipo, Ersan Ilyasova, Domantas Sabonis for Serge Ibaka. Kevin, do you remember like there being any questions about like the legitimacy of Serge Ibaka's age? Because when we traded for him, allegedly he was 27 years old. I remember being on like Reddit back in the day, and people would be like, well, like from where he's from, sometimes like birth dates aren't always like 100% accurate. And the fact that he was done at 33 years old, or I'm sorry, 33 years old in the NBA, and he just did not look 27 years old.
Yeah.
Like physically, and like the way that he moved his time in Orlando. He only played 56 games that season before he was traded to Toronto, by the way. 30 minutes a game, 15 points, shot 48% from the floor, 6.8 rebounds, 1.6 blocks. Like, the counting stats aren't that bad, but if you watched those games during that time, it was never more obvious that a dude did not care, was just here collecting a paycheck, and just was not thrilled to be in Orlando as Serge Ibaka was. Then that offseason, there's money everywhere. Money is flowing for every team in the league. I think there was somewhere between like $60 to $80 million of additional cap space that each team had due to the cap spike. So DJ Augustine signs a 4-year, $29 million deal with the Orlando Magic, which actually turned out to be pretty good value. Jeff Green signs a 1-year, $15 million deal. And I don't know which of these is... No, I do know which one is worse, but both of these are just bad contracts. And that's going to be a lot from me, given the words that I'm about to say. But Bismack Biyombo, 4-year, $72 million contract. After we, the Serge Ibaka trade happens, and you still have Nikola Vucevic on the roster at this time. And Bismack Biyombo had like a decent playoff series for Toronto against the Cleveland Cavaliers, a series which they still lost, by the way. But Bismack Biyombo made like a couple of blocks that I remember in that series, and apparently everybody thought he was like a starting caliber center. But Evan Fournier signs a 5-year, $85 million contract with the Magic, in which the 5th year was a player option. When you're paying Evan Fournier $17, $18 million a year, the fact that you were not able to negotiate either a team contract, not giving him that 5th year, but letting him say, no, I need a 5th year player option in that contract, to me was one of the crazier things that we saw during that time. And then, there's no surprise that the Magic were just not very good that year in that 2016-2017 season. Now, fast forward to May of 2017. This is where Rob Hennigan is fired. Jeff Weltman, John Hammond are brought in as the president of basketball operations and general manager. What do you remember, like, your feelings around the organization at that time, and like what your reaction was to that 2-3 year period, and then going into like the Weltman Hammond era?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily remember specific reactions, but I just remember being like, bro, please save us. Like, please, desperate, like desperation, please fix this mess. Because that's what it was. It was a mess. And I had been, sounds weird to say, I had felt like I had kind of just been strung along by this front office, believing in, hoping for the best from them, believing in them, and then each and every turn, each and every move, just not any good, and some worse than the previous ones. And so, yeah, out with Hennigan was great with that. And then at that point, it's just like, whoever comes in next, I don't care who, save us, please. And hey, we're going to talk about it. He's kind of done that. It's been a long journey, but look, it's better than the Hennigan era, that's for sure.
Now, the trade for in the Serge Ibaka trade, when we traded him to Toronto, I know that Terrence Ross was part of that trade. I also think that we gave up a pick that ended up, was that the pick that ended up being like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander? Like there's something crazy there was a pick that was part of that deal that turned into, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong guy with Shea, but there's a pick that was included in that deal. I'm thinking it was Tyrese Maxey. I'm pretty sure Tyrese Maxey was the pick that was included in the trade for Markelle Fultz. I'm misremembering a few of the details here, but later that year, so yeah, Terrence Ross is traded to Orlando with a 2017 first round pick, lottery protected, for Serge Ibaka, and they come in May of 2017, and basically they're talking about like, we have to evaluate, right? Because they come into this mess where they have these big contracts already on the books in Evan Fournier, in Bismack Biyombo. They have kind of this like, collection of not incredible, but like interesting young talent, right? You have Elfrid Payton, you have Mario Hezonja, on that roster. They declined Mario Hezonja's contract for that next year. The writing was kind of on the wall there. But just to bring back some names, Kev, to let people know like who was on this roster. This is a team that rostered Jody Meeks, CJ Watson, Mario Hezonja, Damian Rudej, Steven Zimmerman, Patricio Guarino, and Marcus Georges-Hunt. Those are some strong like throwback pulls here. Also, still being paid at that time were CJ Wilcox and Arinze Onuaku. Like these were the kind of times that we were going through. So Jeff Weltman and John Hammond, they come into this team in 2017 and they say, hey, salary cap stuff that's going on isn't exactly great. We don't have a ton of money. We also don't have a ton of talent on this team. So instead of just like coming in and cleaning house, they basically took that first year to like really evaluate to see what they had, what they didn't have. And then at the end of that 2017-2018 season, they decided to move on from Frank Vogel and bring Steve Clifford in. Now, we don't have, any hard evidence of this, but it seems like with the Steve Clifford hire and some of the moves that were then made, that it almost seemed like there was kind of like a win now mandate. Like, hey, the team's been bad for a long time. We kind of need to do whatever we need to do, like to make the playoffs and, for this team to be competent. So 2017, they draft Jonathan Isaac. Next offseason, they fire Frank Vogel, bring in Steve Clifford. They draft Mo Bamba there as well. Waive Shelvin Mack, who was the assist leader for that previous season also. And then Jerian Grant gets traded to Orlando from Chicago as part of a 3-team trade. The Magic traded Bismack Biyombo and a 2019 second-round pick to Charlotte. Charlotte trades Julian Stone to Chicago, and Charlotte trades Timothy Mozgov and a 2020 second-round pick to Orlando. This was essentially a salary dump off of Bismack Biyombo because he was so bad and the contract was so bad. Now, kind of like a 10,000 IQ play by the front office, because Timothy Mozgov's contract, the Magic end up getting off of that because he had like an injury that was deemed like career ending. I forget if it was a knee or a hamstring or something like that, but they salary dump Bismack Biyombo and then essentially get out of the Timothy Mozgov contract, which I think, did he get from the Lakers or the Cavaliers? Like Mozgov got like a crazy paycheck a couple of off seasons before that, but the Magic end up like being able to just kind of get out of that contract kind of, scot free. But the Magic are, they're having like an okay type of season. I think they were like 9 or 10 games below 500. Then they make the trade for Markelle Fultz in 2019, where they trade Jonathan Simmons, who the kind of maybe one of the first early missteps of the Hennigan, the Weltman era, where they signed Jonathan Simmons that offseason. He comes off of a pretty solid playoff series with the San Antonio Spurs. Magic signed him in free agency. I don't remember. I was literally like doing laps around my workplace the day that we signed Jonathan Simmons. I was super hyped up. I don't know if you were as excited for the Jonathan Simmons signing.
Nah, I wasn't. But I mean, look, he had a great
Some
time
people
in
were.
San Antonio. But yeah, I can't say I was running laps around anything about that. But yes, it was a nice signing.
I was a little bit younger in those days as well. But yeah, we trade Jonathan Simmons and the 2020 first round pick, top 20 protected, which I believe ended up being the Tyrese Maxey pick, for Markelle Fultz, who at this time had a lot of injuries. There was still a lot of promise, around the league. But right around this time, the Magic go on this crazy run. They end the season 22-9 over the last 31 games, make the playoffs, win the first game against Toronto in that 2019 playoff series before, basically getting swept the rest of the way there. And the Magic were like kind of stuck at that time where, hey, we had a little bit of success here. You end the season really strong. And then they kind of like doubled down into that era. They draft Chuma Okeke that summer, who, had he been healthy, he's probably a lottery pick, but he slid to the Magic. I believe that was like the 16th or the 19th pick, somewhere around there, if I'm remembering correctly. You sign Al-Farouq Aminu to a 3-year, $29 million deal. That was definitely a misstep. They re-signed Nikola Vucevic to a 4-year, $100 million deal. He was coming off of an all-star season, and then signed Terrence Ross to a 4-year, $54 million contract for him to re-sign in Orlando. And then that 2019-2020 season, like going relatively well. Then Jonathan Isaac tears his knee up. I forget, it was like a posterior lateral corner injury, if I believe correctly, to that left knee on New Year's Day 2020. Everyone knows a few months later, the whole world shuts down. Magic come back in the bubble. Jonathan Isaac tears his ACL a couple of games into that. Kyle Lowry takes out Aaron Gordon in his hamstring in one of the Magic's last exhibition games.
Loser.
The Magic win game 1 against the Milwaukee Bucks again. Well, not the Bucks, but they win game 1 again. Yes, gentlemen swept after that point again. And then a few weeks after the season ends, they re-sign Jonathan Isaac, re-sign Markelle Fultz. Some people have, said that, those deals were probably a little bit premature at the time, given the fact that, Jonathan Isaac is coming off the injury. And then when the season starts back up in December of 2020, Magic are 6-2, and they're in their 9th game of the season, and Markelle Fultz tears his ACL. So now we have both of the guys that we just signed extensions to, both of those guys now coming off of ACLs. We know that Jonathan Isaac missed basically 3 years. Markelle Fultz missed almost 2 years, miss a full season, then comes back at the end of that next season. And then that year, that 2021 season, that's the trade deadline where we move on from Nikola Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier, bring in guys like Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Harris, Otto Porter, RJ Hampton, also the trade rights to Franz Wagner, Jet Howard. You get through that season. They signed Mo Wagner, by the way, at the end of that season. And then you bring in Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs in that draft. And that kind of brings us to where we are now. Like you all, have mostly been caught up to this point. But, there are a lot of people who have always said, oh, the Magic are too patient. They wait too long. They do this, they do that. But like going back through all of this, Kev, it really does feel like they kind of needed to be patient. Like there are, 3 or 4 like major things that they could probably go back and do differently, if they had a time machine and could fix those things. Like the not the Bismack Biyombo, but the Al-Farouq Aminu signing, definitely the Jonathan Simmons signing, and then like just how early they've negotiated, some extensions. We can even talk about, the Jonathan Isaac, extension that, that was signed, a summer ago, or the Wendell Carter Jr., extension, that was signed as well. Like the front office hasn't exactly been perfect, but like we talked about this a lot the last few months. They needed to have a good offseason this summer. They did, and now they seem to be, pretty good expectation to make a run at the East this year.
Yeah, I think you're talking about patience. Like it feels like there have been several opportunities over, especially the last few years, for the Magic to really push their chips in or take a gamble or go for it, and they have just stood pat. Sometimes to the frustration of Magic fans, but Jeff Weltman, formerly John Hammond, and now Anthony Parker, and their whole team just continued to stay the course. And I think at some level you got to give them credit for it, because the deals that may or may not have been available, whether we're talking about trades or signings or whatever over the past handful of years, sure, maybe they would have gotten some news, been a little splashy, but would they have put this team in a better spot to contend for a championship than it is right now? I would that would surprise me if that's the case. Obviously, we'll never know, but that would surprise me if there were opportunities out there to make the team better than it is right now. And again, we've said many times this summer, we got to see this team play basketball before we're going to sit here and talk about how great it is or how good it could be or whatever. But in the meantime, you got to show some appreciation to the front office. Again, sometimes maybe frustrated as fans by sitting still. Obviously, the most recent example being this past trade deadline. But if you look at the full body of work, where this team was when they inherited it 8 years ago, which is crazy to think about, versus where it is now, it's night and day. Has it taken a long time? Yeah. Has it taken too long? Maybe. But here we are. And again, the future may be brighter now than it has ever been in the history of this franchise. And so for that, I'll give them some kudos. And obviously, let's see how this team does. And then maybe they'll get even more kudos this time next year.
And I just think about, like the amount of patience that they've had. But when you look around the league, right, and you start looking at other franchises and like, hey, like, what if we weren't super patient and just like kept trying to go in and like make move after move after move? And when you see teams that, over the course of the last 8 years or maybe the last decade that have really tried to do that have never truly found themselves in like contention for like the East, for example, like maybe you could argue like those John Wall and Bradley Beal teams, but did we ever really feel like those guys, like those teams could make a run at the East or making a run at the title? Like probably not. Like Detroit, not really. Charlotte, definitely not. Chicago, definitely not. You look at the West, like you look at Sacramento, certainly not Sacramento. Like the Hornets, had a couple of years like in the Anthony Davis prime, but like since then have like really been floundering a lot. San Antonio, like post Tim Duncan and Kawhi and those, like they've been kind of going in on different versions of those teams when we talk about like LaMarcus Aldridge and like DeMar DeRozan. Like they've been trying to figure it out, but like haven't quite been able to get there. So, or like Atlanta, right? Like Atlanta, they have the ECF kind of miracle run, a couple of years ago, but then they kind of decided to like double down into that with like the DeJounte Murray deal and stuff like that. And it just hasn't worked out. So sometimes like patience is necessary. And I'm not trying to say that every single move that they've done has worked out perfectly, and hindsight is always going to be 2020. And we might look back 5 years from now and say like, hey, like we should have went in even earlier, or hey, the time that we went all in, it was too early, right? Like we might still say stuff like that, but right now for what we know and what we have and what's kind of in front of us, I mean, yeah, you can nitpick isn't the right word because there are legitimate criticisms of some of the things that they've done. But after all of that, to find yourself, like you said, I mean, you put it perfectly, the future of the Magic being as bright as it's ever been in the 30, what are we going into, the 37th year?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 37th year here. Like it's really hard to be mad at what they've done, right? Like all those times, if we go back 3-4 years ago where, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, not that I was saying this, but people were saying, I can't believe we're still have this Aaron Gordon, Vooch, Evan Fournier team and so on and so forth. And, oh, we just keep missing the lottery. And, oh, why didn't we trade for this guy? Why didn't we try to get that guy? And you can go up and down the list. if you would have told yourself, like, hey, if you can wait until the 2025-2026 season, the Magic are going to be like fringe title contenders, I think we all would have went, all right, we'll be fine. We can wait a little bit longer, you know? So again, there are a lot of fair criticisms to like things that the front office has or has not done. But by and large, for what they inherited, I do think it was reasonable. The kind of waiting out period, and like they went through a good 3 years of kind of like that evaluation period before they said, okay, we've really got to, you know, mix this up and change things up. And now they have been like cultivating and growing this team, and it's just kind of at the point where it might be ready to flourish. So they said, okay, let's go all in. So we kind of just have to say, look, you guys have done a great job up to this point. We got to see how this plays out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know we graded them earlier this offseason. We graded a lot of people, but like, how would you grade them after 8 years now? How would you grade this offseason overall? And obviously, knowing maybe you could take a cop-out answer of incomplete because the biggest test is about to happen. But so far, knowing what we know, seeing what we've seen, how would you grade them?
For seeing what this team was, the shape that the organization was in, how many GMs do we see, you know, because GMs aren't fired necessarily every offseason, but like definitely every other offseason, every 2-3 years, like some teams just like keep cycling guys in and cycling guys out. And like most GMs that take jobs don't ever get, especially that take jobs in the state that this team was in, don't ever get to where this team is currently. So like I'm an A- from like what they had, what they inherited to what they've been able to build.
Yeah.
Ask me in 5 years, but right now I think it's an A-.
Yeah, I mean that's right in line with what I was thinking, A or A-, like because I think something we haven't even talked about, but I think maybe almost equally as important as putting together a winning basketball team, it is just about changing the culture. Like the culture of the organization is just totally different. And usually when we talk about culture within the Magic, we talk about Coach Mosley and the culture that he has instilled in the players and the coaching staff, and that's part of it. But first off, that culture doesn't exist without the front office hiring him, so there's that. But I mean, even beyond that, there's just a culture of professionalism and a culture of it requires someone like a Jeff Weltman, John Hammond, and that whole team to go to the ownership, to go to the DeVos family and say, hey, these are the things that are important, the trends that are on the way when it comes to player development and technology and, you know, all those kinds of things, the medical side of it. These are the things we need. Hey, we need a new training center, right? Like all of these things, it takes people leading that charge. And so for that reason as well, I think Weltman and company deserve a lot of credit. They were at the forefront of all of that, the player performance and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, the more I talk myself into it, I'm probably at an A, like maybe not even A-, just an A. Just when I think about, again, like when I say culture, like the idea before Weltman, right? Like you talk about the mid 2010s. It just wasn't a place that people wanted to be. It wasn't a place that was taken seriously because I don't think the organization took themselves seriously. It was just kind of like everyone was here, you play some games, but more importantly, you get a paycheck and you go home. Whereas the culture shift across the organization has been, this is a place people want to be, number one. And number two, we're going to be professionals here. Like there are high expectations. There are high character requirements. And if you don't meet those things, then you just don't get to be a part of it, whether you're a player, coach, whatever. And all that starts at the top with Weltman and Hammond and now Anthony Parker. And so I give them all credit. It's an A for me. And obviously, like I said, the biggest test, though, is still to come. These next 5 years, they're going to make or break the whole thing. As harsh as that sounds, it's true.
And it's hard for us to say exactly, like a lot of what we're saying is like purely speculation because we don't know what was happening behind the scenes and like what exactly caused the change in mindset, right? Because it's not just like president of basketball operations. Like I genuinely think the Magic, like organization wide, the last 6-7 years, there's been a massive shift. Like the Orlando Magic social media team, as great as they are, there was a time where they weren't. And I don't know how many folks who are still involved today were involved back then, but you might not be around, but we were making social media posts that Shelvin Mack was our assist leader during one year because he had like, what was it, 2.7 assists per game that year. And it was like, guys, even if this is statistically true, this is not something that you post.
And it was only true because of a trade. That's the other thing. Like there was a trade. I can't even remember who it was earlier in the season. But by the time the season, and that was happening like right at the deadline. So by the time that the deadline happens in February, the season ends in April, less than 2 months, and then it's Shelvin Mack. I think it was like 4 assists a game or whatever. Or maybe it was 2.7. I don't remember.
Dude, it was brutally, it was very painfully bad. Low.
But it's like, even if it's true, why post it? But anyway, yeah, I digress.
Trying to now I need to go back and find it out. I want to say that was like the 2014-2015 season, or was Shelvin Mack after that? Was that like the 15-16 or 16-17 season? I think it was.
Blocking it out of our memories.
Oh my. Okay, sure. Yeah. So he actually stopped playing in. So it was the 17-18 season, and he had
3.9 assists.
3.9 assists. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Still really, really bad.
Yeah.
By every possible statistic. But yeah, like around that time, like there was a massive shift. And it was because Elfrid Payton was moved that year. I think it was to Phoenix. I want to say Elfrid Payton was moved on that year. But yeah, just like across the board, the organization, there's just been such a shift in that time. And yeah, it directly coincides, like at least the timing of it, with Jeff Weltman and John Hammond coming aboard. And, they had to deal with a lot. A coach that in a roster that they inherited, then it seems like there was like hey, you guys probably should just try to win some games, make the playoffs. They move on from him. They go to not Frank Vogel. They go to Steve Clifford. And then after it's so clearly this team has like reached its ceiling and they decide, hey, we're going to pivot. Steve Clifford doesn't want to be a part of that. And they have to pivot and find a coach. And like they really needed to hit with that coaching hire. And to this point, like they absolutely 100% did. Like they've gotten some things wrong, but they've also got a lot of the really hard, really important things right. Like they talk in NFL all the time about how the most important thing is to find a quarterback. In the NBA, the most important thing is to find a superstar, and the Magic pretty much have two in Paolo and Franz Wagner. So, like again, you go back to the 2017 summer and you look at what they inherited and where they got to now. I think probably most of the guys that get these jobs in the league don't get the Magic to where they are right now.
Yeah,
like maybe you wouldn't say that they're one of the and it's hard for me to gauge these things, but would you say that they're a top 5 front office? I don't know, but like they're certainly in the top third of the league. I think you would have to estimate, and they've built a team that we're all hoping might be able to find themselves in a Eastern Conference or NBA Finals.
Yeah, maybe
even winning the whole freaking thing. Maybe not this year, but in the next couple of years, that's a legitimate hope and goal that I think we should all have. So I hope this is helpful. I know it's a lot of just kind of rambling and all over the place, but there's, at least 100 transactions that have taken place, in those 7 years. So wanted to try to bring people up to speed if you haven't been around that long, but also remind people of like, hey, remember how bad it actually used to be?
It's
like
bad.
Talking about people not wanting to be here, like 2013, 14 to like 2017, it wasn't even always fun to go to games.
No, it was bad. Yeah,
like
I didn't want to be here some of the time. Yeah, it was tough, really bad.
Yeah, you think some of the Boston coming to town or the Lakers coming to town is bad now? It used to be absolutely brutal,
right? Especially because
the Pelicans would come here and there wouldn't be a ton of Magic fans.
Right. Well, that's the hard thing. Like back then, at least these days, you go to a game, And yeah, there's going to be fans from the other teams, but the Magic fans feel like we have a chance or we're going to win. Back then, Magic fans had zero belief, and rightfully so. So like you just like, who wants to go to a game to be out cheered and watch your team get outclassed at home? It's not fun. It's miserable. It's brutal. And it was year after year after year. I was looking at it earlier. I already closed that window, unfortunately. But the coaching records from, I think it was 2013 to 2016 was like a 30% or 29% win percentage for over like 3 years, not 1 year, 3 years.
Sounds about right.
It was brutal, absolutely terrible. But also unrelated, as I was looking through that list, this season, assuming he makes it the whole season, Jamal Mosley will become not the coach with the most, games coached, but the most consecutive games coached this season, because Brian Hill had 2 stints, and his combined 2 stints will make him the coach with the most coaching appearances for the Magic. But Jamal Mosley will have the most consecutive games coached as the head coach of the Orlando Magic. I think I was looking at 68. So towards the end of the season. But hey, if he sticks around that long, that'll be awesome.
Well, the other thing is, this season he is going to move into third, like, most wins in Magic coaching history. He's 27 games behind Doc Rivers right now.
Yeah.
And then, if he sticks around another 2 to 3 years, like he'll most likely end up being the most like winningest coach in Magic history, and the guy with the most games coached and all that kind of stuff. Like, if we look at Jacques Vaughn, so Jacques Vaughn had a 26.9% win percentage. James Borrego only coached 30 games, but he had a 33%. Yeah. Scott Skiles had a 42.7%. Frank Vogel had a 32.9%. Steve Clifford had a 42.3% win percentage.
Right.
Brian Hill, Richie Adubato, Chuck Daly, Doc Rivers, Stan Van Gundy right now, the only coaches in Magic history with above a 50% win percentage.
Yay.
Jamal Mosley, he's got 40 more losses than he does wins, so not this year, but like as early as next year, he could become the next guy on that list.
I mean, 62-20, not out of the realm of possibility. Get those 40 wins there, 40 wins better. But
so like realistically by like January of 2027, he could crack, 50%, win percentage in his time here.
This is totally unrelated to this topic, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I know we got to wrap this episode up, but someday, Jonathan, I've never had this thought until right now. There is a world in which Jamal Mosley ends up with a statue outside of Kia Center.
Yeah.
Like, if he keeps this up, if this team wins and this team does the things we want them to do, wins a championship or 2 or 3, Jamal Mosley's the head coach for 10 years, the winningest coach ever, still beloved by fans and all that kind of stuff. I'd never thought of that. A Jamal Mosley statue outside of Kia Center is a thing that could happen. Isn't that cool? I think it's cool. I love Mosley.
I'm trying to think you never know what kind of iconic things are going to happen, but I just picture him in like a, 3/4 or a half zip or like a long sleeve with like the paper hanging out of the back pocket of him just like yelling, from the sideline. Like, yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's a real possibility that Jamal Mosley ends up being like the greatest coach in Magic history.
Yeah. He's on his way. Obviously a lot has to happen, but he's on that trajectory. And so, we'll see what happens, but that'd be fun.
I'm trying to think here. Like, Richie Adubato obviously has the, one of the best win percentages, but he only, coached 33 games. Like, it's obviously, Stan Van Gundy, Brian Hill, a lot of people would argue, one or the other, obviously. Like, those guys are 1 and 2. After that, it's Chuck Daly, and then, I mean, Doc Rivers, the heart and hustle has a strong argument there. But, I mean, Jamal Mosley, wins a couple playoff series, and it feels like it's Brian, Stan, and then Jamal.
Yeah.
right?
I'd put Stan in front of Brian, but yes, I get your point.
And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to comment under this. I've been watching the team since 1989. It's definitely Brian Hill.
Here's the thing. You can say that all you want. You have to count Brian Hill's second stint, too. You can't just ignore it. You can't ignore it.
Listen, all of that considered, dude is still sitting at a 58% win percentage.
That's fine. That's great. He was also given a very, very good roster,
Correct.
Once upon a time. And Stan Van Gundy revolutionized the game of basketball in Orlando.
I was going to say they literally went from Brian Hill to Stan Van Gundy there.
Yeah.
And within 2 years,
love Brian Hill, by the way. Love Brian Hill. I don't want to turn this into an argument between the two best coaches of all time. But anyway, I digress. Let's see what Jamal can do.
And then, in terms of, obviously, we're talking, John Gabriel, we're talking Otis Smith, Weltman, in company in that conversation for best, front office. I think that's another conversation, obviously, for another time. But anyways, folks, I was excited to do this episode, and then in the middle of it, I'm like, man, I'm really rambling on a lot here. So I hope that it was helpful and, informational and, also informational. Is that even a word?
Yeah, it's
informative, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. If nothing else, Kev, do we have anything else before we wrap this one up?
I don't think so. We'll see you guys Thursday night. Again, assuming the schedule comes out Thursday. We'll go live Thursday night, I think around 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Come join us. Come react to the schedule with us. We'll get you guys involved in the chat, and it'll be fun.
Which means no episode Thursday morning.
Right.
So we won't record Wednesday. If we are, the schedule is going to come out when we think it is. We're just not going to do that. And I mean, you'll hear from us Thursday regardless, because if the schedule doesn't come out, we'll be like, whoops, and we'll do something else. But we'll definitely do some kind of live show on Thursday, so be sure to tune into that. So, all right, folks, thanks for tuning in. We're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. For Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!